And we're live here, the live video companion for the Special Chronicles Show podcast. This is episode 255 with our guest, Kari Wagner-Peck, author of Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey, and the blog atypicalson.com. So this is the video companion. If you want to download the audio podcast when you are walking or running or driving or whatever you do, when you listen to podcasts, you can find that on specialchronicles.com for the audio podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Okay, so now I will press record and I'll point to you there. Wait, I want to make sure I have your intro there. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
It's all in. Okay. It's all there. It's all in the Google.
And just tell me when I should read it.
Okay. So I'll point to you and then.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kari Wagner-Peck. I'm the author of the memoir Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey, and the blog atypicalson.com. And you're listening to the Special Chronicles Show podcast, giving respect and voice to people with special needs.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna stop that. You're kind of cutting in and out there a little bit, so.
I am.
Oh, no, I mean the audio. The video is fine. Just the audio. There was a few words that were cut in and out. So let's stop that. So let me stop that again. So if anybody watches the video, they get some bonus stuff. So hopefully people will only listen to the audio. Okay. Oh, wait. Okay, and
Hi, I'm Kari Wagner-Peck. I'm the author of the memoir Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey, and the blog Atypical Son. And you're listening to the Special Chronicles Show podcast, giving respect and voice to people with special needs.
This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
This episode 255 is brought to you by listeners like you. Please help support us at Special Chronicles with your tax-deductible donation today to help us continue our mission of giving respect and voice to people with special needs. Please go to specialchronicles.com/giving. That's specialchronicles.com/giving. And we thank you for your generous support of our mission at Special Chronicles. This week on Special Chronicles, we are joined virtually in studio by Kari Wagner-Peck to talk about her new book, Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey. Is coming up right now on the Special Chronicles Show on specialchronicles.com.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try. It's time we care. It's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
You're listening to the Special Chronicles Show podcast. This is a show where podcasting disability stories from an insider's perspective, and we are giving a voice to people with special needs. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome back to the Special Chronicles Show. My name is Daniel, and I'm your host and founder of Special Chronicles. So good to be back behind the mic, and we've got an exciting show for you today. As today's guest is Kari Wagner-Peck. Kari authors the blog atypicalson.com. She is a homeschooling mom, a humorist, and an advocate, and activist, social justice storyteller, and performer, and a pop culture fiend. Her writing has been featured on the New York Times Well Family blog, the Sydney Monin Haywood's Daily Life section, the Huffington Post, the Good Men Project, and Life and Love That Max. Here she is today on the Special Chronicles Show to talk about her new memoir, not always happy and unusual parenting journey, a humorous and sharp chronicle about adopting and raising a son with Down syndrome and celebrates the quirkiness of life. Welcome to Special Chronicles, Kari.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
Yes, and I believe we first we first got connected a few years ago when you first Special Olympics International had linked to your blog a typical son, and then you wrote a few pieces on the Huffington Post challenging a New York Times writer for using the R word, and so that's how I first got connected with you, and then something with trying to get you on the show a few years ago. Something like something got misplaced or with, but now it's
I'm here.
Even yeah, now you're here, and it's better timing.
Yeah,
with your new book that just came out May 2017, just a couple months ago.
Yeah. No, I'm thrilled.
Yeah. So for any new listeners who may not have, I'm sure many, because you have thousands of readers on your blog, and now with your book just coming out, I'm sure there's a lot of people that they know about you. But for any of our listeners or viewers who may not know about you, if you begin with introducing yourself to our listeners.
Okay. Well, I am married to a man 14 years, my junior. We married in my 40s. He was in his 30s. And we decided we wanted to become parents. And at 49, I became a parent through adoption. We adopted our son through the foster care system in Maine. And he also has Down syndrome. And the blog came about because a lot of the information I would find was so desperate or sad or just really unappealing to my husband and I about Down syndrome. I mean, there just didn't seem to be, a lot of funny or just real life or natural life. And that's how we felt about our life, that it, so I started a blog just talking about what our day-to-day life was like. And I think people connected to it because there is quirkiness in it, but I think there's so much that's really relatable and universal. I mean, we have the same issues with our son that all parents do, and as a couple. Yeah. So I think, early on, one of the things I had heard is disability is natural. It's a natural part of the human experience, and that really resonated with us. And that was sort of a kicking off point, like to just be funny and real and bring people along on this journey.
Yeah, I think that's awesome that you're bringing that perspective, because we don't see that perspective a lot in either other special needs family books or blogs or and I think that's a great perspective that you're bringing people so your son Thorin was diagnosed with Down syndrome, right? And so can you tell us a little bit about. So I see that first after your title, you have MSW after your title.
Yeah,
you
I have a master's in social work. So I say I'm a recovering or reformed social worker. But yeah, my background was in social work, and I was a social worker for a number of years, which I think really helped me in terms of us having a child who has a disability, because, you know, whether you want to be or not, you're going to become an advocate for your child. And I was used to advocating for my clients. And I was also, you know, my practice was very strength-based. So what you do is you don't look at the limitations of a person, you look at their strengths and how those strengths, for any of us, will carry us through situations. And I think it was good having that perspective. I don't look at Thorin as somebody with a lot of challenges. I see him with a lot of strengths. And as a parent, it's my job to help him identify and develop those to help him in challenging situations, which any parent should do, regardless of whether or not your child has a disability. But I think my background in social work really helped.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of looking at strength, that's something that my dad always talks about too. So I was diagnosed with learning disabilities and severe language disorder, and that's something that he always talks about as well. Is strengths and weaknesses, but not looking at either my disability or friends of mine and other people's disability, but he always talks about all strengths as well. So
yeah, good. Oh yeah, I mean that should be a parent's role, is to help their children identify that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you also in your bio, so that you also homeschool your son?
This is our third year of homeschooling, and I had never been a stay-at-home parent. I'd always worked outside the home, and in fact I said I would never homeschool, and we were so you know, one of the things I write about in the book is that the public education, our district, it was so traumatizing for Thorin that he actually became a different person. You know, he became a fearful person, a person who didn't want to be at school, a person who felt bad about themselves. And you know, I think a lot of times there's this pressure for parents, if their child has a disability, to make the school better. And I think if you can, that's great. But if you can't, I think get out of there. I mean, we got out, and Thorin really responded to homeschooling. He thrives. And we came to the realization he's, you know, at that time he was a 7-year-old boy. He wasn't a social change agent for the limitations of a school district. And so we made the best choice for Thorin, and it's really paid off.
Does your husband also homeschool him as well when he's not working his day job? Or?
You know, not if he can help it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's probably pretty. I mean, I don't know if we're so. I bet we're kind of typical that whoever the homeschool parent is the homeschool parent. I mean, we practice unschooling too, which is, you know, experiential, you know, projects that have interest. So like my husband's doing above bed gardening as a unschooling project, which is great. So Thorin sees, you know, they built it, he sees things growing, we're eating it. And so I want to give my husband some props there for that. I think it's
But,
really
okay.
But I think, yeah, the day in and day out of it is really Thorin and I. And he does a lot of classes too. He takes theater classes every week, dance classes. He does a movie class. Besides the more traditional curriculum, of reading, writing, math.
Yeah. So, and are these all activities that Thorin has asked you guys?
Yeah.
To
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Because I think, if you're coming up with the ideas, you're more invested. And so, he had, I had asked him about a theater class and he said yes, and that's been a great fit. But then he was like, he wanted to take ballet, and I didn't even know he liked ballet. And he really loved it. And now he's doing hip hop. So he changed that. But he just, and the same with reading. He decides what interests him. And right now he's into ancient Egypt because he likes the mummy stuff. And he likes colonial history. And it works better. I mean, for us, I think it works really well. He's doing things he's picking and he loves.
Yeah. So you used to be, now you're a homeschooling mom, and you're an author and a blogger and a performer, but did your husband also work in social work, or does he have a different
No,
job?
he works in there's a huge hospital here, and he works in their learning resource center. So it's like people are coming in who want to get resources. There's like a little library, and so he does that. I mean, I also do some freelance work, development work, and I work on the weekends in a store. I'm a sales clerk. So, I mean, I think when you homeschool, you have to change your priorities about, what you're going to do and accomplish. And, I think we're really lucky we can pull this off.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, guest today on the Special Chronicles Show is Kari Wagner-Peck, author of Not Always Happy in Unusual Parenting Journey, and the blog atypicalson.com. So, Kari, speaking of you said that you do some freelance work, and you tell us a little bit about that freelance work, and also in your bio that you are a professional advocate for the homeless, incarcerated, and immigrant individuals, and you also work as a documentary videographer, and you teach videography at the college level.
Yeah, well, and all of that stuff is from my past.
Okay.
Yeah, so when people say you're going to probably change your careers.
Hold on. It looks like you cut out a little bit. You said
I did. Oh, can you see me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see now.
So when I was a social worker, so I changed my career more than once. So I was a social worker for a number of years, and I did work with homeless youth and incarcerated, immigrants, teen parents. And that was in a job training situation where we were doing job training skills and school to work. And that was great work. I loved working with the young people. They were 14 to 21. It was a great program, a great time. And then for almost 15 years, I was a documentary videographer, creating documentaries. And that was a great time. And then I moved more into running film festivals. And now I now I do what I do.
Yeah, awesome. Speaking of, you said that used to win film festivals. I don't know if you're familiar with Ben and Amy White their blog it starts with voice, but then they also started a nonprofit called Able to Work USA.
Oh,
But what they're probably most known for now is for starting Biddy and Bowles Coffee in Wilmington, North Carolina.
do they have film? Do they do a film festival?
So Biddy and Bowles Coffee is hires people with disabilities, but their two youngest have Down syndrome, but their two oldest don't, and one of their daughters, Emma Grace, is into videography and making videos, and I just saw that I want to say this October she is creating a film festival to include people with disabilities in film.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would
And
love
I'm
to check
blinking
that
on
out.
I'm blinking on the name of that. I haven't met them in person yet, but hopefully someday. But I'm blanking on the name of that. I saw it on their Facebook page. If I hit another screen here, I could look it up. But that will just take too much time.
Okay,
So,
but no, I mean,
when after the show, I'll look it up and I'll send it to you. And but it's I think it's also with a T, but I'm blanking on what it is, but it's and that's going to be this October. So.
oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So that's like because you don't see that many of us with disabilities, either like your son, Thorin, or myself, or other people like what you see on this. Well, our radio listeners can't see, but
Right.
and in either film or TV or in the media, in the mainstream media overall. And I did an interview a few months ago with the Changing the Face of Beauty organization.
Yeah.
And on inclusion in the media. And one of the things that I talked about there is the need for not just more inclusion, but accurate inclusion.
Right.
So like not necessarily like either like your son Thorin, or not just playing a character who has Down syndrome, but him playing any type of character. So
right.
Not just casting somebody with a disability for that type of character, but casting him for anything. And I think it's still groundbreaking. Like the show Speechless or the show Born This Way, those are more casting towards, for any characters with disabilities, which is fine. But I think what will make even a better, what will make a bigger impact is the more, when we talk about the accurate portrayal is not casting for a character with a disability, but casting for anything.
Right. They're the leading man, or it's the the woman who does this. I want to tell you. So Thorin and his friend, I do the movie class with them. His best friend is named Ella, and so they have a little TV show. It's on YouTube and Vimeo. It's called Totally Normal. And so they play aliens that took over Portland, Maine. That's where we live. And they've been in the Children's Film Festival in Portland twice with their films. And it's really interesting because they don't talk about, let's not make it about Down syndrome. It just doesn't have anything to do with Down syndrome. He's an alien, right? And the other character's an alien. It's really more about, kidnapping the mayor, and, going up in their spaceship. And So I really understand what you mean. It's not, this could be, he's an actor who has Down syndrome, who's playing this character. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Because a lot of times, especially with Down syndrome, the character is like this sweet sort of, you don't know anything, but they're really happy and everyone learns good things from them. And it makes me want to puke because there's no complexity to that character. It's just a stereotype.
Yeah. It's just a stereotype. And that's what I hope tons of our listeners will get a copy of your book, because that's what I loved about your book is that you really bring that perspective that gets away from that typical stereotype that most people, when they think of somebody with Down syndrome or any, we probably even apply this to any disability. That so many people, and that's not what that's not the whole picture of them. It's and so and speaking of that video, I'll definitely have to get you in touch with Grace White.
Yeah, I want to see
maybe
it.
That. Yeah, because maybe this new film festival that it's going to be in Wilmington. It's going to be in Wilmington, North Carolina, this October.
Oh, maybe Totally Normal could be in it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay.
So, and so when we go into the next segment, I'll try to look that up. So before the end of the program today, I'll let you know that. If we had a producer, I would tell them to look it up. But
okay, that's fine. I can wait.
Yeah. So you also publicly, as we mentioned at the top of the program, and I want to remind our listeners that our guest today is Kari Wagner-Peck, author of the memoir "Not Always Happy: An Unusual Parenting Journey," and author of the blog atypicalson.com. And so you also publicly advocated that the New York Times be. Oh wait, I skipped something in my notes. So that a few years ago, you challenged Chuck Klosterman, done the ethicist for the New York Times, to respond to the open letter that you wrote asking him to explain his repeated use of the R word in the context of his ethical behavior, resulting in an apology 2 days later and a $25,000 to a charity of your choosing. Can you tell us about that experience, and then kind of going into that when you publicly advocated for the New York Times to be more sensitive in their moderation of veto comments with regard to people with Down syndrome? I think that those were two different cases, but
yeah. Well, the Chuck Klosterman, I mean, I'm a fan of Chuck Klosterman. He's one of my favorite writers. And we became the ethicists he's no longer, but he had replaced Randy Cohen for a couple of years. And, I just came across these quotes. It wasn't like, somebody saying, oh, that's so retarded, which I object to as well. But it was more like specifically making fun of people with cognitive disabilities, like really ugly statements. And I just felt like it was really an opportunity, given his new role. Maybe as a social commentator, I don't think I would have been successful. But the fact that he was then the ethicist, I was able to combine that as a question. What are the ethics of using the R word? And he also had a book coming out, so I knew that would probably put pressure on him. And
yeah,
he did, to his credit, he just absolutely apologized. He said he was wrong. I was right. He capped it off with $25,000, to an organization of my choosing. And, that hadn't happened before then. People, I think Howard Stern and a few other people, open letters had been written to them as well. And there'd been no ground was really gained. And I think I was lucky because it was this, I had him on the ropes because of his role as the ethicist. I think you can't ignore that question. And so that's why I was successful. But he was successful because he took it seriously, and then imposed, this debt on himself, which I was not expecting. And I think, my letter to him was for self-advocates and for people who care and love and work with people with disabilities. And his response to me was for everyone as well. So that worked out really, I feel really fortunate. The readers' respond comments had to do with, Richard Dawkins, I think, had made some inflammatory statements about people with Down syndrome. It's better to abort them. And it was covered in the New York Times and really everywhere. Richard Dawkins likes to say very provocative things.
I think I saw that when,
right,
as well.
Right. And so it's like, of course people are going to write about that when you say you should, and for me, the issue isn't, I happen to be pro-choice, but I think it's an ugly statement. But what I really objected to was there was no moderation on the readers' comments when the New York Times covered that. So it was people saying, yes, they're worthless people. They should be aborted. They're a drain on our resources. They're horrible. They just suck up everyone's time. They were really vulgar statements. And, the ever popular "a boy with Down syndrome" hit me when I was a little kid, which, it's like, I'm sure other people, and, it was so ugly, and I couldn't believe that wasn't moderated properly. And so what I did is I wrote an open letter to then, they used to have a position of public editor, Margaret Sullivan, and I encouraged other people to send my letter, which they did. Saying if they were talking about any other group of people, what if they were talking about the LGBT community or African Americans, or, people of color in general, or women, that why was there no protection for people who have cognitive disabilities? Why is it acceptable to not moderate hateful, ugly things? And to Margaret Sullivan's credit, she addressed that in the New York Times to me and linked to the letter on my blog and said they should have done a better job. And so I think I was really pleased with that response. I got a lot of support, so I was able to be successful with her. Just my letter wouldn't have done that. But that she really took it seriously. And I think it's a good lesson that it's always worth trying to make things different. Those are both instances where pretty easily I was able to make an impact with the help of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess today on the Special Chronicles Show is Kari Wagner-Peck, author of the memoir Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey. And now switching gears to your book that our radio listeners can't see, but if you look on the show notes on specialchronicles.com for episode 255, you will see it, with also links to where our listeners can get your copy. But I'm holding it for any of our viewers here. And so switching gears, can you tell us a little bit about how did this memoir get started? Because you just released it just a couple months ago in May of this year, 2017. So, how did this all? How and when did it all get started?
Well, it started from the blog. I was able, to get a following on the blog, and people really responded to the humor. And also to Thorin. Like, Thorin's a really good character. I mean, he happens to be a real person. But he, the intent with the blog was always to depict him. It was what we were talking about earlier, as a three-dimensional person. This is not just seeing Thorin through the lens of Down syndrome. And not all of my readers have children, one. And not all have children who have disabilities. So I realized, this is, even though there is quirkiness here, it's relatable. And I just thought, I want to take this to a bigger platform. And also the idea of, I write in little arcs. So like 500 to 700 words. What if I could tell you everything that happened in that story and make it bigger? And so I got an agent, Edith Kroll, who is awesome and really believed in the book. And she found my publisher, Central Recovery Press. And what I loved about them is they didn't see it as a book on disability. They saw it as a book on a family journey, and the meaning in that for other people. There's nothing, you wouldn't know from the cover that it's about Down syndrome. I like that. I like that it's a really accessible book. And then, of course, the intention was for Thorin, I'm almost his, I'm his narrator at this point in his life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at some point he's going to say, you're not narrating my life anymore. But so I wanted to do him justice. He's really the centerpiece of this story. And so it was just taking what I did every day for 7 years, or every week for 7 years, and turning it into a narrative, a longer narrative structure. And I just got a review from the Library Journal, and what I was really excited about is they said that they recommend it for all parents. So my intention of writing a story that has a universal appeal just for what does it mean to be a human being is people are getting it. And that makes me so happy.
Awesome. So did you or your husband unload before you guys adopted Thorin when I believe, I'm pretty sure I got this right, but when he was 2 or 2?
Yeah, he came in when he was 2 years old. He came to us when he was 2 or 2.5. Yeah.
2.5. Yeah. I think that's what I'm read in your book here and in preparing for our time together today. But did you guys, prior to adopting him, did you guys did either you or your husband know anybody who either had Down syndrome or other disabilities? Or because it seemed like that you guys knew that you wanted to adopt somebody who had Down syndrome. So did you guys know anybody prior, or how did you guys come to, and kind of in answering that, how did you guys come to want to adopt somebody who had Down?
It it sounds really weird, but we actually said we didn't want a child with a disability. You get this sort of this list of things that you'll accept when you're going to adopt a child in foster care. It's like 5 pages, like it's almost like an a la carte menu. And we made it pretty clear we could probably take a kid who is left-handed or colorblind. I mean, we were like, we're not capable. I mean, I think we thought it took some special skill. And then our adoption worker left a message for us saying she'd met this boy and he had Down syndrome. And honestly, for some reason, it just didn't bother my husband and I. I mean, you know, when you go through the foster care system, all you hear about, you know, that strength-based thing we were talking about, all you hear about is what that kid's problem is. And it's really too bad. The marketing for children with foster care, at least then, was like, you know, he does this, he does that, he does this. And, you know, the triumph of the human spirit sort of gets lost in the, so we knew whoever we got was going to have something. And that's really the way we looked at it. Well, we just know what his something is. And then, of course, we realize we all have something. You know, I have something. Everyone in the world has something that makes them more vulnerable. And you can either see it as a strength or a weakness. But yeah, I mean, we were overwhelmed by a sense of calm when we heard about Thorin. And so I think it became about wanting Thorin, who had Down syndrome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, why did you decide to write write this book? Is it just and I agree with you that the way that you structured it and how it flows, that it flows like that, a narrative of Thorin's life, and that I appreciate that it can be geared for any family, whether they have a child who has either Down syndrome or disability, or if they don't have any. So why did you decide that you wanted to write? Because I'm sure lots of people could go and read your blog, but then maybe did you decided to write this so that it could appeal to maybe other people who may not have come across your blog? Because I'm sure most people who are coming across your blog are probably within our special needs or disability community.
So my avocation, my life mission is to help change the perception about people with Down syndrome from simple, uncomplex, always happy to the reality, which is people with Down syndrome are like all humans that have very rich and fulfilling lives. And I'm most gratified when I read a review or someone contacts me and says, I had no idea people with Down syndrome, have these thoughts. Now, that said, I don't consider Thorin emblematic. He's one person with Down syndrome, and his story doesn't speak for all people. But I think what it does is it starts breaking those stereotypes. A lot of the books about people with Down syndrome are sad and depressing, and they're filled with what somebody can't do. And I don't think that narrative serves a human rights movement. No one was ever set free because their parent talked about how hard it was to be around them. People are set free by their parents championing them. And I don't ascribe to this idea that we talk about limiting, that's been done. That story is played out about grief and about sadness and about, those are things that don't move a human rights movement or a social justice movement. I don't want people to feel sorry for Thorin. I want them to see him as a fully empowered, complex individual who is in control of his destiny. And so I think it's really to change the wider narrative. I mean, I don't know if there's a book out there that's so accepting and inclusive of that experience told in a funny way. Yeah, I mean, I want to change perceptions.
Yeah, awesome, and that's exactly what I want to do as well with Special Chronicles, with these podcasts, with the columns that I write, and of one of my former teachers from high school. She has a daughter who has Down syndrome, and now she is now on our board of directors for Special Chronicles. But she will in the process right now of co-authoring a book on full circle inclusion, and actually when so this was about, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago, and I think, well, no, actually it was probably more like 15 years ago when I was in high school. But at the time when I was in high school, she was just, and this was in a special ed class that I was in, and she was just learning that her youngest daughter, Erin, was going to be diagnosed with Down syndrome. And so when we talk about full circle inclusion, kind of like what you're saying of how it kind of comes into it comes full circle. But we just had a FaceTime call yesterday, kind of because we don't know exactly what tone to write this book.
Yeah.
If it should be humorous, but then there's also some, like when we talk about full circle inclusion, there's also some things that are kind of a little bit more heavy. And so, we're kind of going through this very early stage right now, but a goal next year we'll be celebrating. So as you know, Special Olympics is going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary next year.
Yeah, right.
And at Special Chronicles, we'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
Oh my gosh! Congratulations.
Yeah, and so that's one of the goals that we'd like to have a book to come out then. But and we're going to probably try to have some contributors, and so I'll have to maybe keep you in the loop to see if you want to contribute a chapter. But so with that being said, kind of back on topic on your book here. But in the beginning of the program, we're talking about that film festival and your son and his friend creating the Totally Normal video series on YouTube. Your son Thorin. Yeah, it's on. You said on YouTube and Vimeo.
And on Vimeo. Yeah. And I can send you the link. It's
absolutely. Yeah, send me a link. Yeah, because then I also put it in the show notes.
Oh,
for this episode 255 to share with our listeners.
Good. Yeah, they would love that. Yeah, they're very funny.
I think I might have seen a clip of it, maybe, but send me a link to that, and I'll definitely watch it, and I'll put a link for our listeners to watch it as well.
Okay.
Your son's friend, does she have either Down syndrome or a disability, or?
She doesn't. I mean, he does have friends with Down syndrome, but she doesn't. And she's 2 years older. They were neighbors of ours when we first got Thorin. So they've known each other since he was 2 and she was 4. And they get together every week. Actually, sometimes twice a week. We do art together and we do movies. And that's been a really, I know it's been a really good relationship for both of them.
Awesome. So when we moved on topics, I finally found the name of that film festival.
Oh, what is it?
That Emma Grace White, who is in she's in high school, but it's called VA. Hold on, I'm getting some feedback here. Hold on. Let me move that. Okay, there we go. All right. So it's called. Hold on. Getting some static. Okay. So It's got value VALOREM. VAL as in Linda, VAL,
Okay.
O as in respect, EM Film Festival.
Oh, I'm gonna look it up.
I just put up their Facebook page, and I'll try to share it on our Special Chronicles page. But they've got a video with her brother Bo in there, and the film festival is October 6th to 7th, 2017, in Wilmington, North Carolina.
6 to 7. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's coming up here in just a few months from now, from the time that we're recording this. So, yeah, I'll try to share it on our Special Chronicles page. Yeah, I'm gonna share it on our page after we get off the air, because I don't want to multitask too much.
No. Okay, and I'll look it up too.
Yeah. So it's awesome, and so but switching gears now back to our book. And again, our guest today is Kari Wagner-Peck, author of the new memoir, Not Always Happy in an Unusual Parenting Journey. And for our radio listeners, I am holding up the book here in the studio here, and it's definitely a book that all of you out there listening or watching are definitely going to want to get. And at the end of the program today, we'll let our listeners know how they can get a copy, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to pick one up. So, you mentioned a little bit about kind of that it's geared for a wide range of audiences, and I think you said that there was some recent review of the book that said that it was geared. So, who is? It's a good thing I muted my phone. I was getting a phone call.
Library Journal, which is like the journal for all libraries, school libraries, public libraries. Their review, so they sort of do a rundown of the book, and then they recommend who the book is for, and they recommended it for all parents. And I would argue you don't have to be a parent to enjoy the book. I mean, I've had a lot of readers contact me who aren't parents who really enjoyed reading it. But I'm happy with all parents. But yeah, so
awesome.
That's good. And Publishers Weekly gave it a favorable review. And I was really lucky. Like, I have a lot of endorsers on the book. I mean, people that I just really respect and think the world of, that are supporting it. And that just made me so happy.
Yeah. I saw that you have, and Tim Shiver was the chairman of Special Olympics. He's a good friend. He did an endorsement video for us for Special Chronicles. I know I'm friends with a few of Tim's kids, and then you also have a self-advocate and a Special Olympics New Jersey athlete who also endorsed it. But you also have a Facebook page for the book at Not Always Happy Live, for a new theatrical play comedy.
Yes.
You tell us about the live performance of this book.
Yeah. Well, that started a couple years ago. Bess Weldon, who is a local playwright, director and actor here in Portland, Maine, contacted me. And she said, what do you think about turning your blog into a performance piece, like a one-woman show? And I said yes, even though I'd never done anything like that. I mean, I think it helped that a professional and somebody who's very respected and is, has 20 years experience is like, yes, we should do this. And I was able to get, from the last 2 years, grant support from the Maine Arts Commission. So we have some funding to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And it's really moved from me standing at a podium reading to a 12-piece choose your own adventure storytelling journal with audience participation. And so there's 12 stories that sort of encapsulate the journey and they play pivotal roles. There's me telling Thorin he has Down syndrome. There's a horrific experience that's also chronicled in the book about Thorin being restrained, violently restrained by a speech therapist. There's stories on homeschooling, and the intention is to reach another audience. You know, it's really to educate people through entertainment. So it has the same humor and sharpness and you know, a horribleness that people with disabilities face, but it's done in a live storytelling format. And I did Port Fringe Festival here 2 weeks ago, and the response, I mean, people were, I think their eyes were open to what having a cognitive disability can look like. And I actually had a lot of social workers show up at one. We're going to hopefully do a performance at the school. I think it is challenging people's perceptions. And I actually got a Writing and Excellence Award from Port Fringe following the festival. But I think it's another way to tell this story and introduce people to the idea that disability is natural. This is not a burden on a family. This is a family member who is no different than any other.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. So this play, do you have any video clips online?
Do you want me to send you some?
Yeah. Some, and is that on the same YouTube channel that your son, Thorin and his partner? Oh, is that a different YouTube channel that your son has?
It's a different, it's on Vimeo. Because of the grant, we were able to hire someone to videotape it. So I can send you the links to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this play is more of an entertainment. Is your son Thorin and your husband Ward? Are both of them also involved in this, or was this just a play that just you perform on stage?
Yeah, it's a one-woman show, but I'm glad you brought that up because Thorin is going to be participating. You know, I've done this performance several times, and Thorin knows what I'm doing, and he knows what the stories are. Because if it's something he's not comfortable with, I won't do it. I mean, he calls the shots. He's 10 years old. You know, I'm sure he's going to be in therapy over this, you know, in the future. But but he knows what I'm doing. And this last time, he said, I want to watch it. And I'm like, oh, you know, Thorin, I don't know it. There's so many hard things. And he goes, no, I'm watching it. I'm watching it. And he sat with my husband at the back of the theater. And, you know, there were times he got up and he left and he came back in. And, you know, I realized he should watch it. It's his life. He knows what these stories are. And, you know, afterwards, he and I talked, and he said that some of it made him sad. And I said, there's too much on Down syndrome? And he's like, yes. And I said, you know, we don't think Down syndrome is a big deal, but other people do. And I want them to know it's not. Like, is that, and we talked about that, and he was like, yes, it's okay. So I said, you know, I'll take out whatever you want. He said, no. And he, you know, he really understood. I was like so impressed by his maturity, because at 10, I mean, I don't think I could have processed all of that. He did a beautiful job. So he's also a photographer, and he takes quite amazing photographs. Like, he had an exhibit when he was in school. And so he will be joining the collaborative, the creative team for Not Always Happy, the stage play, and he will be curating photographs he's taken for it. And he's really excited about that. Awesome. So so he will be a part of the creative team.
Awesome. And so then this play, do you also have any plans? So earlier in the program, we talked about that not just more inclusion in the media, in film, TV, and in the media, but the accurate portrayal of inclusion. Plans to take the stage play for this book to either as a TV sitcom or a short film or a film or tune it in
I like
there,
both of those ideas. I don't know if somebody comes to me, I'd say sure. I mean, I don't think
also,
we don't have those ideas, but yeah, I do. I obviously to take it to a bigger audience, to be able to tour with it, maybe as a companion piece with the book, because it is. I just love the response from people. I mean, I feel like it is really helping to change perceptions, so it's worthwhile, and it's totally out of my comfort zone, but I think. Sometimes you have to.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Where Hope Grows.
Yes. I interviewed David.
And you must
have too.
I've had David and also the director Chris Starling, and the other and David's co-star Christopher Palaha.
Okay.
They've all been on this show, actually maybe at least a couple of times, and I know when David was on, like both, I think we've reached at least 1,000 views on those shows when David was on that movie. So with that film, and then there was another filmmaker who created a documentary called Asperger's OS. And so, kind of with both of those filmmakers, Chris Darling and then Alex Luckman, both of those came to mind as filmmakers who might be interested in talking with you. But
thank you for the plug, Daniel.
When this podcast goes live, I'll make sure to connect you guys.
Okay.
Moving quickly on, our guest today is Kari Wagner-Peck, author of Not Always Happy in Unusual Parenting Journey. And the forward of the book, you said, was written by Lawrence Downs, who connected with you because he was following your tweets on Twitter. So how did you get him to write the forward of your book, and then how and what his response was when he because I'm assuming that he read the book before he wrote the forward. So how did you get connected with him to write the forward of the book? And because I believe he said that he didn't know you personally.
No. And I actually got to meet he and his wife last month. I'd never met him before, but so it was actually somebody on the communications team of Special Olympics had contacted me and said, Lawrence Downs, who had been on the editorial board at the New York Times and also had written on disability. He writes on immigration and a few other things, but he wrote a lot on disability as well. Told us to follow you. And so he had found my writing, and I contacted him, and he was just, it was like a shot in the arm. Like, I really felt like here's a serious journalist, a well-respected, thoughtful writer who noticed what I was doing. And, that was like in 2012 maybe, or 2013. And he's just been like a champion and a mentor for me. Commenting on my reading and telling me how much he likes the writing, and that, he's supportive of that narrative. And disability is really important to he, because of his family and his, things that he's interested in. And so it was just like having this person in my corner who's like, yes, you're doing a good job. And so when I wrote the book, I was shocked. He said yes. I was so happy. But yeah, he read it and he got it. I think the foreword is it's a great opening for the book and what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. I thought that by having Lawrence White, and that name sounded familiar to me when I read his forward. So yeah, it was a great choice to have him write the forward for your book. So as we quickly move on, but you wrote in chapter 1, Hitting the Kid, Jackpot. Can you give us a brief synopsis, just since we're running a little long on time here,
okay.
But kind of give us on chapter 1 a brief synopsis of this story that you shared in chapter 1 with the Maine's Department of Health and Human Services when you were adopting Thorin. And so maybe not to give too much away for our listeners, but maybe because I'm sure a lot of listeners are going to want to pick up a copy of your book that I'm holding in my hands here. But maybe give us a brief synopsis of that first chapter that you wrote.
Well, when you adopt from the foster care system, you have to attend 24 hours of training, and 23 of those hours are trying to scare the crap out of you about adopting a kid in protective custody. It goes back to that strength-based thing. It isn't like anyone's like, these are great kids. Boy, you're just going to be fighting over them. It's like, make sure you don't get a little monster. And I just couldn't really. My husband and I were like, we just can't think of children like that. We can't think of our potential child like that. So, some of it was just really tuning that out and kind of focusing on what was to come. When you become a foster care parent, your life is an open book. People come in and interview you. You're checked through Homeland Security. People interview your references, and so it's hard to get into that dreamy parent mode when you're being vetted so strenuously by so many people. But then when you finally get your child, when we got Thorin, it was all worth it. Part of that first chapter is just learning who Thorin is. And that for somebody, we were going to be his third home in 32 months. And that really the focus became on what's best for Thorin, not what's best for us anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Our guest today on the Special Chronicles Show is Kari Wagner-Peck, author of the new memoir, Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey. And you mentioned that the cover of the book can be
I love it.
It's an awesome cover, and even like the font that you have for the title with the robot that's on the side. Can you share with us a little about how you came up with the title of? I mean, not just the title, but like even just the cover overall, because
the cover was Central Recovery Press hired Marissa Jackson. She designed that. I mean, she did a brilliant job. Like I think they're gonna send it in for book title or book cover competitions because she just really captured the spirit of it so perfectly. But the reason I titled it Not Always Happy is like I wish I had a quarter for every time somebody said to me, oh, they're always so happy. And they didn't mean 2-year-old boys or 4-year-old boys. They meant children with Down syndrome. And so I just thought, like, I'm just going to put it right out there in people's faces, not always happy. And I think it works for a lot of things. I mean, I've had people on typically developing children say, "Oh God, I love that title because I hate this whole happy idea."
Yeah, awesome. So moving on here, the name of your blog, atypicalson.com, also the subject of chapter 3 of your book here, and you also have some pictures that are intertwined throughout the book at the beginning of the various chapters that you have here. Like, so one of Thorin and I believe it's your mother, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Thorin and is Jade the one who you were talking about? Who
oh no, Jade's his sister, his biological
his
sister.
Okay, and did you guys also adopt his?
No, she was in another foster. She was in another foster home. I mean, it's sad. A lot of times kids are taken separately from their homes, and so they don't end up together.
But is he still in touch with his sister? Or?
Yeah, I mean, not as much as he would like to be. He was much more in touch with her in the past. But those are, I mean, I think it becomes so complicated. So I'm hoping as he gets older, that will be easier for him.
Okay. And so you mentioned, the title Atypical Son, which is also the title of your blog. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the title for your blog? Because I think a lot of times in our special needs or disability community, we hear about people who are not diagnosed with disabilities or the typical children.
Right.
But then, and I thought that it was a clever name that you came up with.
Yeah.
How Thorin or any other child or any other person with a disability, it's also typical as well. Or is that kind of along the lines that?
Yeah, that you hit it on the head. Yeah, my husband came up with it. You know, we wanted to. It's something that did capture both things. And he came up with Atypical Son, which I think was perfect because you're right. When you're in that, especially when you're with professionals, they use the words typicals a lot. And so we kind of just sort of like not always happy, like we just put it in people's faces.
Yeah. Awesome. So I thought that was an awesome an awesome title that you came up with. Well, you and
Ward
and
actually
your husband
did.
wrote a book. He came up with. And so did Ward did your husband read the book as you were writing it, or can you talk a little bit about his?
No, he didn't. He didn't read it until it came out in book form. Like he actually bought it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have given him a copy, but he wanted to support us.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because it's his life story, and I could hear him in the other room laughing, or he'd walk in and he was crying, and he's like, you know, I am living this. He goes, but I'm really pulled in. And he goes, and I was there. And so I think he just wanted to experience it, you know, as a not typical reader. So yeah, no, he didn't read it until it was published.
Okay, awesome. So our guest today on this Special Chronicles show is Kari Wagner-Peck, author of the new memoir, Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey. For our radio listeners who watch the video, you can see the book that I'm holding in my hand, and you can purchase a copy that will let you know about at the end of the program. But your blog, I think I read in the press release that you had sent along with the book to me. You had sent a press release, and I believe it said on there that your blog has grown from April 1st, 2010 was when you started.
Yeah.
your own blog, and I'm guessing that was around the time when you got going.
Yeah, it was right after the adoption, because we couldn't. When
When
you have a foster child, you can't show photographs or write about them or anything.
Yeah. So then once the adoption was finalized, then you started this blog.
Yeah.
And you shared it with a few family and friends, but then it's grown to today to 7,000 views per month from 117 countries. I know at Special Chronicles, I started this 9 years ago. Next year will be 10 years, and it started with, I think, maybe 50 listeners or viewers from just a few family and friends to now over a total of over 41,000 views.
Wow.
Total.
Oh my God.
I forgot on the per month. That's not per month, but like that's the total 41,000 overall. So, but for your blog, which I'm so, just like me, I'm blown away every day by the number of people who listen and read and watch on Special Chronicles. So how can you tell us a little bit about how your blog was able to your blog at atypicalson.com was able to grow from the few family and friends that were reading it to now over 7,000?
I think Chuck Klosterman helped me immensely. That really gave me a wider audience base, because that was such a it was on the news here locally, but also was picked up nationally. So I think that, and also internationally. So I think I would credit, if there's one single thing I credit to it, that. And then I started writing off the blog. I wasn't just publishing on my blog, I was publishing on Huffington Post and there were. So I think that's what really helped, because I don't really have I wish I was better at social media, but so I would just attribute those two things. Okay,
awesome. So you shared just a little bit ago about your husband Will's thoughts on your book, and I'm guessing did he have similar thoughts on your blog? Or I believe I read somewhere that he also not on the book, but on you, he also contributed in the early days of your blog, or does he?
Yes.
Does he still continue to blog with you?
He doesn't. He the first year it was he and I, and then he was working two jobs, and there was like a lot of things going on at that time. But our sensibilities, what we were trying to accomplish, were identical. I mean, we were really united on our vision for the blog. So and he's a great support. I mean, he's a good sounding board for me and very supportive of the book and the stage production.
Awesome. And so you talked a little bit about your son Thorin's reactions to the stage play version of your book, Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey. But can you share a little bit about when your son Thorin, when he's either seeing your blog or even now with the book, we're recording this on July 7th, so it's now been out for a couple months now. But your son Thorin's thoughts on your book, and because on the back cover of the book there's a picture of you and Thorin.
I love that photo.
That's an awesome. Did your husband Will take that?
No, Betsy Carson from All Art Media is a good friend of mine. She's a photographer and filmmaker. She took that for us for free. And it just, that was just one of those moments he got up and did that. Because I had brought a suit for him, of course. And he's like, no, I will wear this suit coat with running pants. And it just I think Betsy really, really captured him perfectly in that photo. Thorin's happy about the book. You know, he knows, in general, he knows what it's about. You know, I have some rules. Like, there's a lot of things I don't write about Thorin. I don't write about, you know, his maturation development. I don't write about crushes. I don't write about, you know, things that are private. I don't write about any of those things. He, you know, I tell him what I'm going to write about in general, this story. There are things he said I can't write about, so I don't. I think it's important, you know, when you're telling someone else's story, whether it's your child or whoever it is, to be fair to that person.
Yeah.
And that, you know, personal things are personal and they're private and they're not for everyone to know. And so I think I do a pretty good job in terms of communicating to him what I'm doing. And I think, can you see me?
Yeah,
oh.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay. Yeah, that's my biggest concern. Like, what is it okay? At a certain point, this isn't going to be okay for me to do. And hopefully at a certain point, I won't have to do it because there's not going to be such a barrier for people with cognitive disabilities or disabilities in general and, you know, in the world. But yeah, I mean, what he thinks is most important to me.
So did you, throughout writing the book, did he look at any of, like, did you read to him any segments or any pieces from the book to kind of get it?
You know, it's so funny, he doesn't want to hear me read it. Like, he'll watch my videos. Well, now he's seen most of the performance.
Yeah.
But before, what he would do is watch my videos, and he wanted to watch them alone. And then he decided whether or not he was going to talk about it. So, you know, he knows in general what the stories are, but he's 10 years old, and the language isn't, a lot of the language is way above a 10-year-old. And some of the concepts are. I think he's honestly confused why people think Down syndrome's a big deal. So I mean, it's who he is. Like, he's not like, it's more like, why are we doing this? But he trusts me that it's effective. And that's what I've got going for me, is that, you know, I'm a pretty good mother, and he knows I don't lie to him about things. But I think in general, like, he's sort of like, I have no idea what the big deal is, which is how it should be. I mean, it tells me he's not buying into what society is saying.
Yeah.
You know, fight the power. So that makes me feel good. And as he grows older, he'll have more control, obviously.
Yeah. So did that kind of play into the role with Thorin and his friend creating this video series called Totally Normal? Did that?
Yeah, it has nothing. Yeah. I brought up Down syndrome once, and they both at the same time were like, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Like, he is an actor in a series he created with a friend where he plays an alien.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, it's really about that artistic process and that collaboration of how do we tell a story that's going to be interesting to people and that's funny, and they're both bringing different perspectives to it. But and that's true with his photography too. He doesn't want that. He wants it understood as something he did, and that's it. This is not about boy with Down syndrome or Down syndrome boy takes photographs. So has either with him and his friend creating this video series, or with his photographs,
has the even tying that back to your book as well, but all about these projects that he and his friend are working on. Has there been any local press or any media pieces that they have done on your son Thorin? And have they, because I know, like with the Special Chronicles and stuff, I've had, I think I was on our local CBS News, local ABC News, and some local newspapers, and a lot of times they say, well, I think like on one story, I think on ABC, they said man with a speech impediment or whatever. So like it seems like a lot of these media, these transitional media pieces, say they include the disability within either the headline or somehow around the lead of the story. And I have a bachelor's degree in journalism, so I kind of come from that same world, but also kind of not really wanted to put a lot of emphasis on the disability, either be it in the headline or within the actual, like even within the lead of the story. So has there been any press appearances kind of around your son with any of these projects that he's in? And is, because it seems like, kind of going off of what your son wants, is to have to focus on these projects that he wants to do and not really focus on the Down syndrome.
Right. Yeah.
So has there been any media pieces, and has that kind of played? Because hopefully they will want to listen to him and you and your husband, that to not have, because it seems like a lot of the traditional media wants to put the focus on, oh, this is a boy with Down syndrome, but like A, does that play a factor in that, and B, maybe kind of going off of that, how can we encourage the media to not put the focus on that? Because it seems like that either be a Down syndrome or LD or any disability, that they want to put the focus on that when they shouldn't, when they should put focus on whatever project, be a video series or whatever, that put focus on that, and then just kind of maybe bury that, like a lot of times we say in journalism, is then we kind of bury that, whatever Down syndrome or whatever, we kind of bury that maybe at the bottom of the story. And so is that?
Well, I don't think Thorin's ready for the coverage yet. He has apraxia, and so Thorin reads quite well, and he's good with a script, but because he has apraxia, he has a hard time with generative language. And so responding in the moment then in a comfortable situation is easier, but in a higher stakes situation would be harder for him to respond in the moment. He's starting to use a new communication device. And so I think it would be, in the past, he hasn't been comfortable with that, which we totally respect. Because unfortunately, when people have a difficult time communicating, someone assumes it has to do with being intelligent or thoughtful, or rather than being intelligible.
Yeah.
And he would not be, I think it would be painful for him. He doesn't want to do it right now. So as that becomes more comfortable for him, I think he would. But I do agree with you on, that idea of bearing the lead, because it's this hard balance between including people with disabilities and then making it seem like somehow it's minimizing their ability and talent to have that be part of it. And that's what I object to, that somehow like, isn't this inspirational, rather than, hey, this is a journalist who covers this topic and they have an inside view because they have a disability, which is much different.
Yeah, and I think that ties into, I think, something that we saw on the show, Speechless, and other things, that is about inspiration porn, about like not seeing somebody with a disability like your son or myself or many others as being inspired, but really being inspired by them, and not being, because like there's so much, I think probably within a disability or special needs community, there's so much inspiration porn that will lead to those negative things. And so if we can, instead of talking about being, and people have even told me this, and other people as well, but people so much talk about, oh, I'm so inspired by you. I'm so, and I think if we can get away from saying that they're inspired, just say, you know, that they're, instead of saying inspired, say they're aspired, or, you know, and kind of go from that perspective, and that can kind of lead to kind of what we've been talking about.
Right, because it's not, you know, I often, like Thorin being able to go to theater camp and do all these things he does, I was too introverted, and I was not a confident child. I couldn't have done that. And so, you know, I want him to know, but he doesn't encourage me because he has Down syndrome. He encourages me because he has confidence and theatrical ability. Yeah, I think it's important, those distinctions.
Awesome. Our guest today on the Special Chronicles Show is Kari Wagner-Peck, author of the new memoir, Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey. And so, kind of going off of what you were talking about, Carrie, about how...
I've got to leave soon to pick up Thorin.
Okay. I'll hurry up. So the response from viewers has been positive?
It's been really positive. I mean, it really, really has. I mean, it's selling on Amazon, and the reviews are quite positive. And I'd actually encourage anyone who has read the book or do read the book, if you'd leave a review on Amazon, it actually helps the author. I didn't really know how much. Yeah. The other thing I want to add, Daniel, is one of the people that reviewed my book is Anna Rose Rubright. Yeah. She's a self-advocate. She's a young woman with Down syndrome. You know, one of the things I always looked at books written particularly by parents of children with Down syndrome is, did they have someone with Down syndrome review it? And I've never seen that. And that always shocked me.
I thought that was awesome.
I mean, I just couldn't, I was like, well, why wouldn't you, like, if you had a child who was deaf or you had a child who was blind, like, why wouldn't you have someone with Down syndrome review your book? And not, Anna Rose Rubright does not talk or speak for all people with Down syndrome. Yeah. But we should still have people. I actually contacted 3 or 4 people with cognitive disabilities to review the book. And Anna Rose came through. And, you know, she was like, I always wondered that. And hers was like probably the most thoughtful review I got. I mean, she actually gave me 3 pages of notes. The criticism she gave me was perfect. It was actually in my notes of criticism. She thought there should have been more on Ward and even more on Thorin. But I'm so... I mean, that was just so important. That was one of my goals, is to have somebody who had Down syndrome. I mean, I do have 2 other people with disabilities that are endorsers, Maria Nichols and Emily. Emily, yeah. But it's not exactly the same. And so and it would have been okay if she hated the book. I mean, I would have learned something from that too. But she happened to like it.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And then you also have Tim Shivo, and listeners, if they get a copy of the book, they can see those on the back cover with the awesome picture with you and Thorin on there. So seeing that we're went along on time, and as we come to a close now, finally, any brief social media plugs for how our listeners can get a copy of your book, Not Always Happy, An Unusual Parenting Journey, and as well as to follow you and your blog online?
Yeah, so I have an author website, KariWagner-Peck.com. It's my entire name, KariWagner-Peck.com. And you can access my blog through there as well. And there's information on the book. The Not Always Happy Facebook page has to do with the performance and the book. And then also Amazon.com. I mean, if you're interested in purchasing the book, you can read reader reviews there and buy the book from them.
Okay, awesome. Any final thoughts on your overall time here today on Special Chronicles that you want to share with all listeners?
Just thank you a million times, Daniel. I was like the worst guest with technical problems. You were so good, so nice, and I'm just really honored to be on your show. I mean, I love what you do, and to be a part of it for a little bit is awesome.
Awesome. So if our listeners want to, and I've been showing on our Instagram story at Special C Podcast, and I've been tagging you. So if our listeners want to follow that, if you want to share your feedback, you can email us anytime. feedback@specialchronicles.com. feedback@specialchronicles.com. Just email us an audio file or email, and join the conversation on social media at Special Chronicles, on Facebook at Special Chronicles, or on Instagram and Twitter at Special C Podcast. Make sure to leave us, just like our listeners can go leave a review for your book on Amazon. They can also leave us your 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher Radio.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
For Special Chronicles, yeah. And so thank you. Our guest today on the Special Chronicles Show has been Kari Wagner-Peck, author of the new memoir, Not Always Happy, an Unusual Parenting Journey, that all of you listening or watching right now should go and pick up a copy of the book. And off air, we can talk about maybe seeing if we can have do a giveaway.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You totally can. Let me know what you need.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about that off air and let our listeners know about that. But it's been awesome, and we'll have to have you on again, and hopefully we can meet up in person someday.
Yeah, I would love that.
So
okay. Thanks, Daniel.
Until then, take care and God bless.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
Stop the audio there and stop the